Hello my friends and welcome back to a new video. Today is an author special because in the month of March I was lucky enough to meet the author Kristin Hannah, who's the author of books such as The Great Alone, Firefly Lane, The Nightingale, you name it. She has a lot of books out there and she's just a fantastic author, and I was lucky enough to meet her, and it was very interesting to see what she had to say about her books, about her writing process, how she became an author, and all of the good stuff. And finally, I am here to share it with you. So if you're a Kristin Hannah fan, this will be amazing, but even if not, it was just interesting to listen to her, how she writes and all of that. So I hope you enjoy. So this whole thing started with me reading The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah back in January, and I was just amazed by this book. I loved it so much. It became an instant favorite, an all-time favorite. And so once I finished this book, I researched the author and I saw that she's doing a reading that close by to me, so I just had to sign up. I also bought a few more of her books, these three. So yeah, what can I say? I went overboard, but it's been a great experience so far. But let me tell you, The Great Alone was fantastic. It was historical fiction set in Alaska, and we follow a family that is going through a really tough time. We have an abusive father who emotionally and mentally abuses his wife and his daughter, and it's essentially a book about women breaking out of these unhealthy relationships and making a life for themselves. And it's also about Alaska and the wilderness and what it takes to live in a place like that. The book is set in 1974, so you know, it was just all in all very interesting, very emotional. I cried a lot, and yeah, I can recommend it to anybody. So this is how my Kristin Hannah love story started. So at this event that I visited in March, Kristin Hannah was being interviewed by her friend and author, what's her name, Christina Baker-Klein, and she was talking about many things, and I have made a bunch of notes here so I don't forget anything, and I would like to talk about it. But yeah, here's a picture. I don't know if I put it left or right, of me and her. She was very sweet, Kristin Hannah. She came around and talked to all of us and then sat on a podium and was talking. And so I had the impression that she was very tough, very funny, humorous, and yeah, all in all, an impressive woman. So she started by talking about how she became an author, because her career was not straightforward. She actually started with law school, and she became a lawyer in the Pacific Northwest. And something changed in her life when her mother had breast cancer and was in the hospital. So she was visiting her, and during one of those visits, her mother was telling her that she is going to become an author. She just outright told her, and Kristin Hannah said that she never even played with the idea before. She had no idea where this came from, but she picked it up and she was like, yeah, why not? So she and her mother together thought, okay, what could we write about? Her mother was very much a fan of romantic history novels, historical romance. And so the two of them started this project in a way together. And then unfortunately her mother died and she forgot about it, put it to the side, put it in a box, put the manuscript in a closet, and continued her life as a lawyer. Then when she was pregnant, it was a tough pregnancy and she was bedridden. So when she was in that position, she picked up this box again and thought, okay, why did I never finish this writing project? Let me try. So she began writing again, and this is how it all started. Of course, the first book that she wrote was not the greatest in the world, as it usually is. It's very seldom that authors publish a bestseller as their first work. So she finished the book, she thought it was great, sent it out, and it wasn't taken anywhere. Nobody wanted it. So she said, looking back, she was happy that nobody published this first work of hers, because she said it was horrible looking back. And she said that she ever was to die, she told her kids and her husband that they should never publish this piece of work. Because I know there's some people where the children after the author's death have published old manuscripts, like Lucinda Riley comes to mind. I think there was something published posthumously, but Kristin Hannah said, no, never with my first manuscript. It was horrible. So that was funny. She also mentioned that she has published by now many, many books, and it seems to her that every 7 years she reinvents herself. And the first reinvention was with Firefly Lane, because that was the point in time where she started writing about women and women in history, and then women's stories, and that continued until the Nightingale, when another 7 years had passed and she changed her writing style and started writing about historical fiction. So she is evolving as an author, and we'll see what happens next, I guess. I don't know if the next 7 years have already passed, but there might be a change soon. Now let me talk about some of the books that she wrote, and let me start with The Four Winds, because this was the book that was at the center of this event. It's her most recent book that was published, and so she talked a great deal about this one. The story in this book is taking place in Texas in 1921, during the time of the Great Depression and the time of the Great Dust Bowl, I think it's called. So essentially there was a drought at the time, and the land was not fertile, there was no water. So life was very difficult for the inhabitants of this area, especially the farmers. And the main character in this novel is a woman who lives on one of the farms that are struggling at the time and fighting for survival. And so we follow her story. And let's see, Kristin Hannah said that in general, she doesn't like writing as much as she likes editing. So she usually writes very fast and then spends a lot of time editing her books. And she said that for this book, she wrote 450 pages and then completely deleted all of that, because she had the idea in the end of another character. Of those of you who know the book, I haven't read it yet, this character was Elsa, which I understand is one of the main characters. And so at the end of the book, she realized, okay, let me change this whole story, and she threw everything out. So that was very impressive to me. I cannot imagine how it must feel to throw out so much work that you just completed, but I'm sure it was for a great reason. And I'm sure after reading this, I couldn't imagine the book without this character, Elsa. She said that essentially this book took her 1 year of research and 1 year of writing. So that tells you a lot about how much research goes into these historical fiction novels. Something not to underestimate. And then last but not least, she said that for this particular novel, she wrote many endings. I'm not sure anymore how many there were, but it was definitely 2 digits. And she picked the one that she thought was most fitting. And she mentioned that because apparently there has been a lot of, disagreement whether the ending was good, whether it was appropriate, or whether it should have been different. But she said, listen, I wrote a whole bunch of different endings, and this one was the best one. So just an interesting fact, I think. The next book I want to show is The Nightingale, which Kristin Hannah talked about a little too. And this one I think is her most famous book. At least that's the impression I get. It's taking place during World War II, and we're in France. We follow the lives of 2 sisters, and of course their lives change a lot when Germany comes and invades their country. These 2 sisters are very different. I think one of them is already a mother or married, so has a very steady life, but war comes, and of course there are a lot of changes for her because her husband has go to war and all of that. Her sister is younger, is more rebellious, and is taking place in the resistance. And we see these 2 women and see where life takes them throughout this war. And the thing that Kristin Hannah said is that just like The Four Winds, she finished this book and felt like something was off. At the time, she had only one of the 2 sisters in this book as a character. And so she said that after finishing, she thought, maybe I should add another protagonist. And then she added the second sister after the fact. So I imagine that this book would have been very different with only one of the 2 sisters. So I can't wait to read it, but I thought that was an interesting fun fact. Another thing, and I'm not spoiling here because apparently we know this from the very beginning, one of the 2 sisters dies. And we know this in the beginning, but we don't know which one of the 2. And Kristin Hannah said that she herself, as she was writing it, had no idea either. She waited till the very end to decide who of them is going to live and who of them is going to die. And that must be very interesting. I like the idea that the author herself was discovering the story as she went along and didn't know everything from the beginning. I like that. For those of you who like watching movie adaptations, the book was made into a movie, and yeah, Dakota and Ellie Fanning are playing the two sisters. So once I finish reading this book, I think I will take a look at the movie as well. The last book I want to show you is Firefly Lane, which is also the last that Kristin Hannah talked about in detail. Here too we have two very strong female characters, and we follow their friendship over time. It's set in the 70s and 80s, and yeah, we meet the two girls when they're young and when they become friends, and see how they grow up, where their lives takes them, and how their friendship develops. So it spans over 30 years, so we get a good chunk of life that we witness. And the main topic in this book is breast cancer. And as you've heard before, Kristin Hannah's mother had breast cancer and died from breast cancer. So I imagine it's a very important topic to her, and probably the motivation behind this book. And what I thought was very emotional hearing was that she finished Firefly Lane on her mother's death anniversary. So very meaningful, and yeah, I cannot wait to read it. I know all her books are emotional, but just knowing this information in the back of my head will make it a different read for me, I think. As just like the Nightingale, this one was also made into film and movies. It is a Netflix series. And Kristin Hannah was asked in general about Hollywood and how it is when your books are made into movies or films. And she said that, or how much she's involved. Her only answer was that, yeah, she wrote the book. So that's the extent of her involvement. She just writes the books, and then once you sign them over, I guess Hollywood just takes it and runs with it. She also mentioned that a couple of her other books have been signed into movie deals. I think The Great Alone was one of them, but Hollywood works at its own timeline, I guess, and there's always delays and everything. So we'll see when the next movie comes out. All right, the last thing I want to mention is that during the interview, Kristin Hannah was asked if she has a favorite book among her books. And I thought that was a very interesting question, because I imagine it is tough for an author to pick a book, but at the same time, maybe not, because she had an answer right away. She said that the two books that she likes the best are Nightingale and Winter Garden. So I have Nightingale here, so yet another reason to read it, but Winter Garden I now also have to add to my list of books I want to read after hearing her say that. She didn't go into details, but yeah, those are her two favorites. She finished the talk by saying that she has just finished another writing project, so there's no publishing date yet or anything like that, but there's something in the pipes. So if you're a Kristin Hannah fan, be ready. And yeah, I'm definitely looking out for it. I have a lot to read though for now, so these 3 books will follow me through the next few months probably, and you will see them here at some point. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting to share with you what Kristin Hannah said, and yeah, I certainly enjoyed it. It was really cool meeting her, and I want to meet more authors going forward. I'm now starting to always look if there's somebody close by. So hopefully you'll see somebody else here soon. And until then, I wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy. Until next time, bye-bye.